Find other great podcasts like this one at Podmoth.network.
Hi, my name is Joe, and I'm the host of Tales, Trails, and Taverns. In this show, Rob and I like to take an active approach by hiking out to haunted, creepy, and abandoned places. We love the adventure and discovering the dark history of the locations we visit. We release a new episode every Friday on Apple, Spotify, and Patreon, as well as bonus episodes on varying Tuesdays. But don't just take my word for it, we have great listeners who have left some awesome reviews.
I love adventure, but during those times when I can't get to the outback, I like to listen to Tales, Trails, and Taverns. Those boys dig deep into the dark history, and their first-hand experiences really delivers the excitement. This podcast is a beaut. Back when I was the governor, I didn't have time to listen to podcasts. But now that I'm retired from politics, I can focus on my two passions, pumping iron and listening to Tales, Trails, and Taverns.
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is that we all listen to Tales, Trails, and Taverns.
I love listening to the podcast. Wait, what's a podcast again?
It's an audio show you listen to.
Oh, like on the radio?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. I love listening to Tulips and Tiddlywinks.
It's Tales, Trails, and Taverns.
And what do you do again?
Hike to scary places and drink beer.
Sounds terrifying. Okay. I like to listen to Terrifying Tea Time, but not on the radio.
Okay, thank you. You did great.
You're welcome. Say, you're kind of cute. Is there a Mrs. Tales, Trails, and Taverns?
Now you get it?
No actual celebrities or political figures have endorsed Tales, Trails, and Taverns. All the reviews you've heard were written, poorly, by the host, Giorgio, as well as the impersonations of celebrities, politicians, and movie characters. I meant no harm. Please don't sue me.
I'm Mandy.
And I'm Avery.
We're the hosts and creators of Thick Thighs and Creepy Vibes.
Join us as we take a deep dive into the macabre and the unexplained.
Listen every Wednesday as we take you on a chilling journey that transports you to all corners of the Great White North.
Let's boot those Sunday scaries while we take a rip into the harrowing tales of the haunted and the supernatural phenomena that defy explanation.
So grab your ketchup chips
And your Caesars, and make sure to
creep it real.
Welcome to the Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy podcast. I'm Declan, the son.
And I'm Jane, the mom. This is the podcast where we talk about brutal crimes, bizarre occurrences, and get you drunk with cocktails themed around one of our stories. To lighten things up, we'd like to end our time with a chaser. Please keep in mind some of our stories might be upsetting to young or sensitive ears.
We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to contact us by email or social media. You can find our contact info in the show notes for this episode. If you'd like to support us through Patreon, you can find us there at Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy Podcast, or use the link in our show notes.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Brutal, Bizarre, and Boozy. How are you doing, Declan?
I'm good. How are you, Mom?
I'm doing all right. What story do you have for us today?
I'm going to talk about Giorgio Vizzardelli.
I don't know that name at all.
I didn't know it either, probably because it happened in Italy, but...
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah. What story do you have for us today?
I'm going to tell you about the Tower of London.
Big Ben?
No, the actual tower that's in London that was a prison. It has a long history of stuff. And of course, because it was a prison at one point and also a place of execution, what do you think is there?
Probably ghosts.
Yep. Good guess. Good guess. To go with this story, I brought the Spicy 50, which the name doesn't have anything to do, but it was invented in a bar in London, the Bar 50, I believe, in London, which is why I brought it for the Tower of London. And it is made of 48 mils of vanilla vodka, 15 mils of Saint Germain, 21 mils of lime juice, 10 mils of honey syrup, and chili peppers. So you take the chili pepper and muddle it in a shaker, then add all the other ingredients, shake with ice, and fine strain into a chilled cocktail glass, and then garnish with another chili pepper on the rim if you so desire.
I think this is going to be quite pleasant.
I think it's going to be weird. The combination of vanilla, vodka, and chili peppers in and of itself sounds weird to me.
Yeah, but you got the honey syrup in there. It's kind of like a hot honey deal going on.
And vanilla vodka and Saint Germain both have a little bit of sweetness to them as well. So I don't think it's going to be overly sweet. But I'm smelling it, and I definitely smell the chili. So we'll see. Okay, I'm ready. I'm a little scared, but we'll see.
Let's give it a try.
Oh, it is really spicy.
That's weird.
It is
weird.
Oh, I used a half of a pepper. And
what kind of pepper did you use? You used a habanero or something?
I used a serrano.
Yeah, those are hot.
But I don't even know if I used a half. It might have been more like a third, and it's really spicy.
I guess I do like a lot. My heat tolerance is a lot higher than yours. So
yes, it is. It is.
It's got a nice
just
burn
fire.
on it. That's for sure.
It is pure fire. Oh my goodness. Yikes.
I bet
Okay.
muddling it gets all the capsaicin out of the pepper. It probably hits a lot harder than just cooking it in a stew or something.
Oh my God. I also,
just
now
used a
that I'm thinking
jalapeno.
about it,
I didn't.
I made the mistake of I didn't even think about it. I just cut it off and shoved it in the shaker. I put the seed end in so that I could use the other end for the garnish rather than buying two peppers. And that might have been a mistake. I like the flavor, but I don't think I can finish it, at least not while we're recording and have me make any kind of sense because I will be coughing here shortly. Oh my God. Okay. In hindsight, I probably should have used less of the pepper and not the seed end. Okay. Whew. And now my sinuses are running because it's so spicy.
If you're sick,
oh my God. Yeah, that's true. If you have a stuffed up nose, then go for it and see how it doggy. All right, let's get on to the story, which does have some spiciness to it, but not that kind of spicy. The Tower of London was built for the purpose of intimidation, essentially. 1,000 years later, it still intimidates, but now it is just as famous for the dead who refuse to leave as it is for the living who once ruled within its walls. The tower began as a statement of conquest. After the Battle of Hastings in 1066, William the Duke of Normandy, soon known as William the Conqueror, moved methodically toward London, securing his new kingdom with castles, which I get. I would love to have a whole bunch of castles, but I'm not going to conquer people for it.
I'm looking at this right now. This doesn't look like a tower to me. There's 4 towers.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's got a bunch of towers. It's got like the Tower Green. It's a whole complex of stuff.
If that was a fucking Marriott, I'd believe you.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the fortresses became the Tower of London. The structure that gives the whole complex its name, the White Tower, was begun around 1078. It was a looming stone keep that meant to dominate London's skyline and the population below. At the time,
is that the circular one? Is that they're all the same color? So there's only one that's circular though. Is that the?
I'm not sure actually. Not having ever been there, I'm not sure the whole grounds are haunted,
Okay.
basically, because a bunch of shit went down everywhere in that complex. Back in 1078-ish, Londoners saw it less as a royal residence and more as a symbol of foreign oppression looming over their city, which nobody likes foreign oppression. I mean, that makes for a bad day. Over time, additional walls, towers, and defenses transformed that single building into a sprawling fortress, which is what you saw, with concentric curtain walls and later a moat dug to reinforce its defenses. The message, however, was always the same. This is where power lived, and it's still part of the royal family. So, stuff happens there. In its earliest centuries, the tower was not just a prison or an execution ground, it was a royal palace. Medieval kings used it as a secure residence, a seat of administration, and a strongbox for the things they valued most. The crown jewels, which are still displayed there today, reflect that long tradition of safeguarding power and wealth behind thick stone walls. Kings such as Richard I, Henry III, and Edward I, pretty much a bunch of kings with over the centuries lived there. And, I'm not going to get into like every single king that lived there because who wants to listen to that?
They need they need some creative people making names in that family, because whenever I hear there's just like Edward Thomas, King Edward Thomas III. It's just boring ass names, and I can't give me a King Sanjit or something.
That might be the foreign control again, foreign oppression. But the kings over the 12th and 13th centuries turned the tower area into more of a formidable state of royal authority. From the outside, the tower's gray walls and turrets projected strength. From the inside, its great halls and royal apartments could host courts, feasts, and ceremonies. The tower's fortifications were tested more than once. Through multiple kings' ownership and multiple attempts to take the tower by force, it withstood standoffs. These episodes fixed the tower's reputation as the ultimate fortress of English kings. But as happens over time, power shifts. And over the centuries, the tower evolved from a royal home and fortress into something darker. It became It became the state's most feared prison, a place for high-status captives and political prisoners. Its cells held overthrown kings, rebellious nobles, religious martyrs, and ordinary people caught up in extraordinary accusations. It was officially used to house prisoners from at least the early 12th century into the 20th. So a very long time was it used for prison purposes.
I'm looking at pictures, and it looks way cooler with the moat around it. Once
for sure. Like moats are just cool.
Shit, but this is it's like its own little island because it's connected to the river or whatever.
Right.
But it looks super cool.
I
should say it still looks cool, but it used to look way cooler.
Right. Well, you throw a moat around anything and it's going to make it a little bit cooler, right?
True.
I wouldn't mind having a moat.
See this place. It looks super sick.
Okay. Let's go. Wait, until you hear some of the ghost stories, then maybe decide after, because you're usually not super excited about going to ghosty places like me.
It's different if it's a tour, because we did that.
That's
the Shanghai,
true.
And that it feels different when there's a person that's like a guide.
That's
true. If you're just in a haunted place by yourself, it's a lot scarier.
Go, and then it doesn't, it's not a hotel, so it's not like we're going there to spend the night and get creeped out in the middle of the night from weird things knocking on the wall. So let's go.
If there's there's other people there, so if hopefully the ghosts take them instead of us, there'd be a better odds.
For sure. You just have to run a little faster, right?
I don't think that's how ghosts work. I don't think
No,
it's
probably
quicker.
not.
I don't think you can push over your friend and leave them for the ghost. I think they just take who they want.
That would be nice if it did. In the 20th century, during the World Wars, the tower still held prisoners and even saw a handful of executions by firing squad. The last recorded use of the tower as a prison was in the 1950s, when the notorious Cray twins, who were London gangsters, were briefly held there. Not everything within the tower's walls is human. A long-standing legend surrounds the ravens that live on the ground, as in the birds, little blackbirdies. By tradition,
that's why there's a
at
picture
least
of. I'm looking at
the
Google
bird.
and there's just a picture of two ravens wearing top hats in front of the tower. So I was wondering why that was there.
That's funny. Oh, it's like, why? By tradition, at least 6 ravens are kept at the tower under the care of the Raven Master. A superstitious belief holds that if the ravens were ever leave the tower, the crown will fall and Britain itself will collapse. One story places the origin of the captive ravens to the 17th century. After the Great Fire of London, ravens were widely treated as scavengers, but a royal astronomer reportedly warned the king that destroying all of the ravens would be a terrible omen for the kingdom. In response, the king supposedly ordered that a small number of ravens, not raisins, I almost said raisins, a small number of ravens be kept at the tower permanently. Whatever the precise origin, the blackbirds hopping across the grounds give the tower's atmosphere an extra layer of folklore. Of course, there was a dark side within the tower walls. I mean, it's a prison and executions happened there, so of course there's a dark side.
Yeah.
It saw torture and it saw executions, some on nearby Tower Hill where the public could watch, because when you don't have TV, apparently that's what you do.
I bet
and some
it was
inside
like real good for the community if they could go watch like a pedophile get
bad guy
executed. Let's bring that back. Let's instead of UFC fights, let's do fights to death for certain death row inmates.
For reasons. Yeah. Okay. I would. Yes. That's.
If the government put that on pay-per-view, like they'd make so much money. Just like pedophile fights, you make them fight each other.
Is there a movie like that? I think there's a movie like that. I just can't think of what the name of it is. I don't know. Never mind. I'm imagining things.
Sorry, getting distracted.
That's okay. The tower was often reserved for the most high-profile or sensitive deaths. With so much blood, power, and fear soaked into its stone, it is perhaps unsurprisingly that the Tower of London is considered one of the most haunted places in Britain. Official and unofficial tales circulate among guides, staff, and tourists, each adding fresh layers to the tower's already heavy atmosphere. Many visitors come as much for the ghost stories as for the history. So you're going to go for the history and the cool architecture, and I'm going to go for the ghost stories.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. Looking at the pictures of the inside, it looks just like crazy to see in person.
I so want to be in a castle just to see how tall the ceilings are and how big the rooms are and all of that, because it's just gigantic. It's not like the stuff that we have,
I want to see what the insulation feels like. I mean, I feel like it could either be really good or really bad. Like if it's all stone walls, I feel like if you lit a fireplace, it'd warm the whole thing up. But there's also no
then as soon as
windows or anything.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
No double pane glass in this shit. So
exactly. Among the most famous of the tower deaths and subsequent hauntings is that of Anne Boleyn, second wife of Henry VIII. Accused of treason, adultery, and incest, she was arrested and brought to the tower in 1536. Only 3 years earlier.
Wait.
Okay.
You said she was royal?
Yes.
Why are the royals getting arrested for incest? I thought that's what they did, and that's why they all look so goofy.
I think they needed a reason to execute her. Would be my guess.
Okay, but what year was this again? What'd you say?
1536.
Yeah, I think they were still probably inbreeding in the royal family to keep the blood pure. So that seems a weird thing to charge her with, but I don't know. So.
Well, it's like our current legal system. We just tack on as many things as we possibly can think of because we want to get you on. Exactly. Yeah. Throw the whole pot of pasta at the wall and hopefully one's going to stick. Now she awaited judgment and ultimately the executioner's sword. Typical reports of the situation paint a picture of a woman aware of her fate, yet determined to meet it with dignity. She was executed by a French swordsman on Tower Green, an unusual courtesy intended to ensure a clean, quick death, which I would prefer if somebody's gonna, execute me. I would like it to be quick.
I think we talked about this before, but firing squad's probably my preferred method.
Yes, we have talked about that. And I don't know. I don't think there's a good answer. I just want it to be quick. Beheading seems like,
Yeah, but there's stories of like
should be quick.
Like the heads are
that
still
they didn't do it right
and stuff.
Yeah. Either way, not good. Her body was buried in the nearby church within the tower's walls, and that became the resting place of many who fell from grace. According to the stories, Anne's spirit returns again and again to the place of her downfall. Stories place her ghost in several parts of the tower complex. Some say a dignified figure in a dress glides silently along Tower Green or moves quietly from the site of the scaffold to the church where Anne's remains were buried. Other accounts describe a more shocking apparition. Anne is seen headless, her ghostly body carrying or searching for her missing head, or a headless figure drifting through the chapel where her bones lie beneath the floor. I'm down for seeing a ghost, but I don't really want to see a headless one.
The more pictures I'm looking at this place, like they needed to film The Shining here.
Oh, yeah.
It's haunted and it looks spooky.
Yeah.
But they also have lion statues, which is a big part of The Shining. If you haven't read the book, but this is giving me Shining vibes.
Occasionally, guards have reported sudden dread or unaccountable feelings of being watched near the places associated with her final days. Anne Boleyn's story fused the tower's political and personal horrors, but she was far from the only notable victim. Another haunting death occurred a few years later, that of Lady Margaret Pole, Countess of Salisbury. She was one of the last members of her personal royal lineage. She was arrested under Henry VIII and imprisoned in the Tower. In 1541, she was brought to the scaffold on Tower Green. Accounts of her execution are notoriously grisly. She did not get the nice, sharp French swordsman to help her. According to later descriptions, Margaret refused to place her head on the block, forcing the executioner into a clumsy, panicked performance. It's said that he struck her shoulder instead of her neck with the first blow, leading the elderly countess to run bleeding around the scaffold while he pursued her, hacking at her with his axe. It allegedly took multiple heavy blows to finally kill her. Yeah. Again, quick. Sharp sword.
Winder.
Yeah. Yep. Even if some details are exaggerated over time, observers agreed that it was a brutal scene. Her body was eventually laid to rest in the same tower chapel that holds Anne's remains. Lady Margaret Pole's violent end also echoes through ghost stories. Given the described chaos of her execution, it's not hard to see why later generations imagined her as a restless spirit. Some accounts claim that on the anniversary of her execution, witnesses have seen a blood-smeared figure running in terror around Tower Green, pursued by an invisible executioner. In these stories, the Phantom Countess reenacts her last frantic moments, bleeding from multiple wounds, forever reliving the injustice and horror of that day. Which is
horrible.
Awful. Another
I just
powerful
imagine
presence.
Betty Hill music.
Yep. Oh, goodness.
God, that's awful.
Oh, that's terrible. Another powerful presence associated with the tower's haunting lore is Henry VI. The overthrown king was held there during the final phases of the War of the Roses. On the night of the 21st of May, 1471, he died within the tower, officially of, quote unquote, melancholy or sorrow. Many historians believe he was in fact murdered, likely on the orders of Edward IV. According to legend, Henry's ghost returns each year on the anniversary of his death. At around 11 o'clock at night, he is said to appear in the Wakefield Tower, where he had prayed a lot in his life. So he would go there to pray, and that's his cool place to be. And so he shows back up there. Witnesses describe a solemn spectral figure pacing slowly along, pausing as if in contemplation, before fading gradually into the stone itself. The tower's walls have also witnessed the quiet, unresolved tragedies of the young. In the late 15th century, 2 royal boys were lodged in the tower, Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York. They entered as princes. They were never seen to leave. Sources noted how the boys were increasingly withdrawn from public view. At first, they appeared at windows and behind bars. Then they were seen less and less until they disappeared altogether. Rumors spread that they had been murdered in the tower, possibly on the orders of their uncle, who became Richard III. Centuries later, in the 17th century, workers digging near one of the tower's staircases reportedly found a box containing small human bones. They were quickly linked in the public imagination to the lost princes, and they were later placed in an urn in Westminster Abbey. The forensic certainty of that identification is debated, but the mystery of the princes in the tower has spawned its own ghost tales. The Bloody Tower, one of the structures within the complex, is traditionally associated with their suspected murder. Since the 15th century, reports have surfaced into 2 small, pale figures dressed in nightgowns appearing near the Bloody Tower. Some witnesses describe seeing them huddled together, seemingly frightened, and then slowly fading away. Others report the sound of children sobbing softly in empty corridors. In a more recent twist, 2 guards in 1990 reportedly heard the laughter of unseen children near the tower. There are also more subtle phenomena, of course, the typical sudden drops in temperature, inexplicable smells, and the feeling of being crowded in an empty room. Some visitors and staff have spoken of invisible hands tugging at clothing or of a pressure on the chest in certain chambers, as though the air itself is trying to squeeze out a scream.
Ew.
Today, the Tower of London is a major tourist attraction, not just for the crown jewels, but also for the potential of seeing long past residents roaming the grounds and running around with their head cut off.
Yeah, that sounds scary.
I don't want to see a headless ghost. I'm down to
Me
see a
either.
ghost, but please, I would prefer it to have all of its appendages.
It might be less scary if it doesn't have a face, though.
I don't think so.
If it's just a torso and legs, I think I'd prefer a
and
headless ghost,
arms.
actually.
No.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Okay, let's talk about Giorgio Vizzardelli. He was born in 1940 in Italy into what has been described as a relatively stable middle-class environment. Unlike many individuals who later become the subject of criminal pathology, there is little documented evidence of severe abuse, neglect, or overt trauma. However, retrospective accounts suggest Vizzardelli exhibited a constant pattern of social withdrawal and emotional detachment from an early age. Teachers and peers reportedly perceived him as distant, reserved, and largely disengaged from interpersonal relationships. These characteristics, while not inherently indicative of future violent behavior, align with traits frequently observed in individuals who later develop severe antisocial tendencies. Throughout his adolescence and into early adulthood, Vizzardelli remained largely inconspicuous. He didn't distinguish himself academically or professionally, and appeared to drift between occupations without establishing a clear trajectory. This lack of stability was accompanied by a broader pattern of social invisibility. Individuals who later encountered him often described him as unremarkable, someone who blended easily into his surroundings without attracting attention. This ability to remain unnoticed would later become a critical factor in the execution of his crimes. By the late 1970s, Vizzardelli had adopted a transient lifestyle characterized by mobility and minimal social engagement. During this period, it is widely believed that his internal psychological landscape underwent significant transformation. Although direct documentation of early criminal activity is limited, behavioral analysis suggests a progression consistent with established models of serial offending. Such models typically involved the development of violent fantasies, followed by rehearsal behaviors, and ultimately the transition into action. In Vizzardelli's case, the progression culminated in a series of targeted attacks against vulnerable individuals, primarily young women traveling alone.
Ugh.
His first confirmed homicide, attributed to Vizzardelli, occurred in 1978. The victim was a female hitchhiker, a demographic that would become central to his pattern of offending. The circumstances of the crime indicated a methodical approach. Vizzardelli initiated contact by offering the victim transportation, thereby leveraging a socially normative interaction to establish trust. Once the victim entered his vehicle, he transported them to a secluded location where he carried out a sexual assault followed by murder. At this time, the initial homicide was not recognized as part of a broader pattern. However, the subsequent years, additional cases began to emerge that shared notable similarities. Between 1979 and 1980, multiple young women were reported missing under circumstances that followed a pattern. He was just picking up hitchhikers. People would see him and then they'd go missing, whether that was friends or family calling. A lot of these people were going missing. Several bodies were discovered in isolated locations on side roads off the highway, like kind of near Chiloquin area, like where they would go.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like highway and then dirt road.
Right.
They'd find a lot of bodies there. By targeting hitchhikers and other individuals traveling alone, he minimized the likelihood of immediate detection. His demeanor played a crucial role in facilitating these interactions. He was just a quiet guy, didn't talk much until it was too late.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Once the victim was isolated within the confines of his vehicle, he exercised physical control, transporting them to a predetermined location. The subsequent acts of violence were characterized by a high degree of organization. The assaults were not impulsive, but appeared to follow a structured sequence indicating premeditation. After he would commit these crimes, Vizzardelli took deliberate steps to conceal evidence by disposing of the bodies in these remote locations. The investigation of this crime was significantly hindered by structural limitations within law enforcement at the time. They were having a lot of interjurisdiction problems. Like, since he was traveling all over to different counties, and well, I don't know if they have counties in Italy, but different
cities.
areas, like the
Probably.
police.
Yeah.
The police weren't talking to each other at the time. Like
Right.
now they have databases and stuff that they can look through, but this was all just like
right.
A cop would come across a dead body or something like.
And they're like, okay.
And since these were hitchhikers, people on the side of the road, there's not a lot of witnesses to like, oh, we saw this lady with this dude at this restaurant. He'd just swing by, pick him up, and
right.
Yeah. Forensic limitations during the 70s was also a main role on why he didn't get caught. In the early 1980s, however, investigators began to identify reoccurring patterns across multiple cases. The similarities in victim profiles, method of abduction, and body disposal locations suggested the presence of a single offender. Because I'm sure it's rare that these things happen like once or twice, but if they're finding them all over the place, then it would suggest that one guy's doing it.
Yeah.
The eventual breakthrough in the case was the result of cumulative investigative efforts rather than a single decisive piece of evidence. Witness accounts played a significant role, particularly reports of a man offering rides to young women in areas where victims were last seen. Descriptions of a vehicle associated with these encounters provided an additional point of evidence for them. They were able to identify his car, and Vizzardelli became a suspect. His arrest in the early 1980s marked the accumulation of all these vehicle reports, witness testimonies, things like that, bodies discovered in the area. And throughout the investigation, the legal proceedings and the investigation, Vizzardelli's demeanor remained notably consistent. He exhibited controlled and detached disposition with little indication of emotional response to all of his allegations. So he was just stonewall the whole time, not really giving any emotion whatsoever. During the trial, the prosecution proceeded to go over all the evidence, pattern of behavior, and this included the consistency of victim profiles, the method employed, and the graphic distribution of incidents. Vizzardelli was ultimately found guilty of multiple murders and sentenced to a long-term period of imprisonment. The severity of the sentence reflected both the nature of his crimes and the repeated, calculated manner in which they were carried out. And that is the story of Giorgio Vizzardelli.
Yikes. Well, it explains why I haven't heard his name.
Yeah. Don't get in people. Don't hitchhike. That's the gist of it. Don't get in people's cars if you don't know them. If a guy seems weird, don't get in his car.
Right.
This guy was weird, so
yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, I would.
Do you have a chaser for us today?
I do. I have a watch recommendation. Let me get it pulled up so I can get the name right. Jose El Cook on YouTube. He does like shorts making cooking content and stuff like that. And he has like an agua fresca series where he makes different like punches, like a mango. His kitchen looks really nice. It's satisfying to watch his videos because he does a good job editing them. But I find a lot of things on his page. And I'm like, ooh, that looks really good.
So,
and he has a lot of traditional Mexican dishes, which
is it Jose L as in the letter L or EL?
EL.
EL.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up.
What is your chaser?
My chaser is also a watch recommendation for the series 56 Days on Prime. And it's a good little murder mystery. No.
Oh, that's
it's
28.
a murder mystery.
Okay.
Yeah, not 28 days. No zombies in this one.
Okay.
There is a melted person in a bathtub though.
Ew.
Yes.
That's gross.
And then the whole show is trying to figure out who the melted person is and how they got there. And you're not sure if it's a guy or a girl or who the identity of the melted body is, but it's a good little show. It was gross. I mean, I just kept watching it and thinking, I don't want to be the crime tech person who's having to scoop, because they showed it several times where they were ladling out and sifting. It was really gross, not to be too graphic, trying to not be graphic, but it was gross.
The crime scene cleaners are like the Honeydew with Ryan Sickler.
Yes.
His Patreon, he has a reoccurring guest that used to do crime scene cleanup or like biohazard cleanup, and the stories that he tells
I heard
is just
one.
like, oh my
I heard one of them and it was so gross.
He told the story of a jumper who landed on a kid's playground.
Oh, no.
You know, like the jungle gyms, how they have like the steps are metal with holes in them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had some very graphic description of that.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Crazy. If you're gonna if you got $5, go to the Honeydew Patreon and listen to that. There's some crazy stories on there.
It's wild stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that just about wraps us up for today's episode.
It does.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Love you, Mom.
Love you too, bud. Bye.
Hey, friends. Thank you for supporting our podcast. Please share our show with your brutal and bizarre friends. Give us a boozy follow on your favorite podcast platform. If you're feeling extra generous, we'd appreciate a 5-star rating or review as well. But maybe do that sober so all the letters are in the right place.
You can find all our contact information in the show notes. We love hearing from you, and if you're interested in helping us stock the bar for our future boozy episodes, you can find our Patreon link in the show notes as well.